The stars above the Illyrian homeworld always shone brighter than any human I had ever seen. But to her, the beauty of the night sky brought no comfort. She was Illyria, one of the last daughters of her fading race. Her people were known for their elegance, their wisdom, and their grace, yet they carried a curse that no science of their world could undo. The curse of infertility. For generations, the Illyrians had watched their numbers fall. Children had become legends, and the sound of a newborn's cry was now only a memory told in stories. Illyria had grown up with this silent sorrow, hearing the whispers of elders who spoke of a time when life flowed freely through their kind. But now, the wombs of Illyrian women remained empty. It was not just her pain, it was the pain of an entire civilization. She walked alone through the crystal gardens of her city, her steps echoing softly against the glowing stones. Around her, the towers of Illyria shone with cold light, powered by endless energy but lacking the warmth of new life. What use was progress, she thought, if her people could not survive to see the future? Tears slipped down her silver eyes, though she quickly wiped them away. A princess could not be seen weeping, even when her heart was broken. But she carried a secret, a dangerous hope whispered through the hidden texts of her ancestors. A prophecy spoke of another world, a primitive place compared to their shining cities. Yet within its creatures burned the spark of fertility, a force that could heal what her people had lost. That world was Earth, and that spark, she believed, was hidden within the essence of human males. Illyria had studied the old records in secret. She read of humans, strange, reckless, full of passion and chaos. Her teachers had called them crude, unstable, and unworthy of Illyrian notice. But Illyria had seen something different in the writings. She saw strength, adaptability, and a strange life force that no other race carried. If the prophecy was true, then humans were more than just primitives. They were the key to saving her dying kind. Still, the thought filled her with fear. To reach Earth meant breaking the Council's law. The leaders of her people forbade contact with humans, claiming they were too unpredictable, too dangerous. But Illyria was desperate. She could not sit idle while her people faded into shadows. And so, she made her choice. She would leave, alone, and seek the truth for herself. Her ship was small and hidden, its silver hull reflecting the stars as it slipped away from her world. Inside, she sat with her hands trembling, the weight of her mission pressing on her soul. Would the prophecy be true, or was she chasing a dream that would destroy her? She remembered the words carved into the sacred stone. Life shall return through the seed of another, and the barren shall be made whole. Those words haunted her, gave her hope, and pushed her forward through the endless dark. Days passed in silence as the stars stretched before her. Illyria dreamed of the humans she would meet. Would they help her, or would they see her as a strange creature? She feared their rejection, feared their cruelty. But somewhere deep inside, she felt a strange pull toward them, a feeling she could not explain. It was as if destiny itself guided her path. At last, her ship entered the orbit of a blue planet, its oceans shining like sapphires beneath a veil of clouds. Earth, her heart raced as she watched the world spin below her. It looked alive in a way her own planet no longer did. Vibrant, fertile, overflowing with energy, she whispered to herself, her voice breaking with emotion. This is where hope lies. She prepared her disguise, a cloak that would hide her alien beauty. Her silver hair tucked beneath a hood, her glowing eyes dimmed by a veil. She could not let humans know the truth, not yet. She must first find one she could trust, one who could help her, not as an experiment, but as a partner in her desperate search for life. As her ship descended into the shadows of a quiet forest, she felt fear tighten her chest. She was alone, far from home, and surrounded by an unknown species. But she had no choice. Every heartbeat of hers carried the weight of an entire civilization. If she failed, her people would vanish forever. If she succeeded, the Illyrians might rise again, reborn through the unlikeliest of bonds. And so, with trembling steps, Illyria left the safety of her ship and entered Earth's soil. The air was heavy, filled with scents and sounds her world had long forgotten. Leaves rustled above, water flowed nearby, and life surrounded her in every form. She felt it in her bones. This world was different. This world was alive. And somewhere here, she would find the one thing her people needed most, a cure hidden in the essence of a human male. Her journey had begun. The night was calm when Illyria first set foot on Earth's soil. The forest around her whispered with life, every sound strange and wild to her ears. She pulled her cloak tighter, hiding the glow of her skin, and walked carefully through the shadows. Her mission was clear: find a human male, one she could trust, one who might hold the key to saving her kind. But her heart trembled with fear. What if the prophecy was only a myth? What if she was chasing nothing but dreams? She walked for hours until faint lights glimmered in the distance. A small town stood at the edge of the forest, glowing softly under street lamps. The buildings were simple, nothing like the crystal towers of her homeworld, yet there was warmth in them, a sense of belonging. Her eyes studied the humans passing by, laughing, talking, carrying bags, living lives filled with ordinary joys. Illyria's heart ached. Her people had forgotten such simple happiness. They had knowledge, they had power, but no children to carry their legacy. Among the humans, one figure caught her attention, a young man walking alone, holding books close to his chest. His face was tired, but his eyes held a quiet strength. He entered a small building with a glowing sign, Research Center. Illyria's breath caught. Perhaps fate had led her here. With careful steps, she followed, slipping inside after him. The room smelled of paper and strange chemicals. Machines hummed softly in the corners. The man set his books on a desk and began writing notes, unaware of the cloaked figure watching him. Illyria hesitated, fear pulling at her chest, but she knew this was her moment. She stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "Human," she whispered, "I need your help." The man turned sharply, his eyes wide. At first he thought she was just a stranger, but when the light touched her face, his breath froze. Her silver eyes shone like stars. Her skin glowed faintly even under the veil. She was not like anyone he had ever seen. Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. Illyria lowered her hood, revealing her beauty and her sorrow. "I am Illyria, of the Illyrian people," she said. "My race is dying, and I have come to your world seeking a cure." The man stepped back, torn between fear and wonder. "You're not human," he whispered. "No," Illyria replied, her voice heavy with sadness. "But I believe your kind carries what mine has lost." She explained the curse of infertility, the prophecy of human essence, and the desperate hope that had brought her across the stars. Her words filled the room with silence, every syllable trembling with truth. The man listened, his heart racing. He wanted to laugh, to deny it, to say it was impossible, yet something in her eyes held him still. He saw not just an alien, but a woman drowning in sorrow, begging for hope. Finally, he spoke. "My name is Daniel," he said quietly. "I study biology, genetics, and sometimes dreams, though none as wild as this." He paused, his hand trembling against the desk. "If what you say is true, then humanity might be the only chance for your people." Illyria nodded, relief softening her face. "I do not ask for power or conquest," she whispered. "I ask for survival, for a future my kind no longer has." Daniel looked into her silver eyes, and for a moment he forgot fear. He saw pain, yes, but also strength, and something even deeper. It was as if her soul reached out to his, asking for trust. And against all logic, he gave it. "All right," he said slowly, "I will help you." Illyria's eyes glistened with tears, the first true hope she had felt in years. But in the shadows outside, unseen by both, dark shapes moved. Hunters from her world had followed her trail. They too knew of the prophecy, and they would not let the secret of human essence remain in Illyria's hands alone. For now, Daniel and Illyria stood in a fragile moment of trust, unaware that danger was already closing in. Their encounter was not just the beginning of a cure, but the spark of something far greater, a bond that could change two worlds forever. The research lab was quiet, except for the hum of machines and the soft scratch of Daniel's pen. Illyria sat across from him, her silver eyes scanning every detail of the strange human instruments. Her heart beat fast, not from fear of the machines, but from the weight of what was about to happen. For the first time, a human would test the prophecy. The future of her people balanced on this fragile moment. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he prepared his equipment. He had studied genetics for years, but never had he imagined working with a living being from beyond the stars. Every movement felt unreal. Every glance at Illyria reminded him this was no dream. Her presence filled the room with quiet power, a mix of sorrow and hope. He tried to focus on the science, but he could not ignore the way she watched him, as if he was the last thread of her destiny. "I will need a sample," Daniel said gently, his voice calm though his heart pounded. Illyria tilted her head, unsure of his meaning. "A piece of your essence," he explained. "Your blood, your cells, anything I can compare with human DNA." She hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line. In her world, to share blood was to share trust. Slowly, she extended her arm, her voice soft as a whisper. "Then take what you need." Daniel carefully drew the sample, amazed by the shimmering glow of her blood. It pulsed with faint light, as if carrying energy unknown to human science. He placed it into the machine, his eyes widening as the data began to appear. The structure was elegant, but fractured. It was as if the Illyrian code had been locked, broken in a way that denied life itself. Illyria watched his face, searching for answers. "What do you see?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel leaned closer to the screen, astonished. "Your people's DNA? It's extraordinary, but there's a block here like a door sealed shut." He paused, his brow furrowed. "But when I compare it to human samples, something changes." He placed his own blood sample into the system. The machine hummed, merging the patterns side by side. Illyria leaned forward, her eyes glowing with hope. That happened. The screen showed resonance, human DNA bridging the broken strands of Illyrian code, like two puzzle pieces that had always been meant to fit together. Illyria gasped, her hand covering her lips. "It's true," she whispered. "The prophecy was true." Daniel stared at the screen, his heart racing. "This isn't just compatibility," he said, his voice hushed with awe. "It's as if humans were designed to repair what your people lost." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Illyria's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of something new, something fragile. "Hope." She turned to Daniel, her voice trembling. "You hold the cure. Your kind holds the future of mine." But Daniel's thoughts grew darker. If this was true, if human essence really was the cure, then others would come, others who would not ask but take. He looked at Illyria, her beauty glowing softly in the dim lab light. "Does anyone else know about this?" he asked carefully. Illyria shook her head, her silver hair brushing her shoulders. "No, only me, and now you." Daniel exhaled in relief, but deep inside he knew the truth. Secrets never stayed hidden. If Illyria could find Earth, others could too. And if they discovered what he now knew, humanity might not be safe. Illyria stepped closer, her eyes locking with his. "You must promise me, Daniel," she whispered. "Promise me this knowledge stays between us until the time is right." Her voice carried desperation, but also trust. Daniel nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his mind. He had never made such a promise before, one that carried the weight of entire worlds. But looking into her eyes, he knew he could not refuse. As the night grew deeper, Daniel continued his experiments, comparing, testing, watching patterns form that defied logic. The more he studied, the more he realized how fragile the line between science and destiny truly was. Every result confirmed what the prophecy had whispered. Human essence was not just compatible, it was salvation. Illyria sat quietly, watching him work. Her heart no longer felt as heavy. For the first time in her life, she believed the Illyrians could be saved. But another feeling stirred within her chest, one she had not expected. When Daniel looked at her, when his voice spoke gently, when his hands worked with such care, her heart raced in ways that had nothing to do with survival. Yet outside the walls of the small lab, shadows still moved. Figures watched from the dark, silent and waiting. The secret was no longer safe. And soon, the fragile bond between human and alien would be tested in ways neither could imagine. The lab grew quieter as hours passed. Machines still hummed, screens still glowed, but the tension in the air had softened. Illyria sat by the window, watching the human world outside. Children played in the street, laughter echoing through the glass. Her heart ached, for her people had forgotten such sounds. It had been centuries since the Illyrians had heard the joy of children. She turned away, her eyes glistening. She wanted that joy again, not for herself alone, but for her entire race. Daniel noticed her silence. He set down his notes and walked closer, his voice gentle. "Are you all right?" he asked. Illyria hesitated before answering, her tone soft and fragile. "Your world is alive in ways mine is lost. I envy you, Daniel. I envy your people." Daniel studied her face, the sadness in her eyes, the way she carried her burden like a heavy chain. He had never met anyone like her, and the thought that she trusted him, a simple human scientist, filled him with both fear and pride. Their bond began not with words, but with silence. She sat closer to him as he explained his research, pointing to patterns on the screen. He spoke in simple terms, careful to make her understand. Illyria listened intently, her hand sometimes brushing his when she leaned forward. Each touch was accidental, yet it left sparks in the air. Neither of them spoke of it, but both felt it. Night deepened, and exhaustion pulled at Daniel's eyes. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "You should rest," Illyria said softly. Daniel laughed faintly, shaking his head. "Rest? When the future of an entire race might depend on this. No, I can't stop now." Illyria reached out, her slender hand resting gently on his. "You carry too much weight for one man, Daniel. Let me carry some of it with you." Her touch was warm, soothing, and Daniel found himself staring into her silver eyes. For a moment, the world outside vanished, leaving only the two of them in the glow of the lab. But even as their bond grew stronger, shadows stirred beyond the walls. The hunters from Illyria's world had not left. They lingered in silence, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Their mission was clear: bring back the secret, no matter the cost. And they knew the girl would not surrender it willingly. Inside, Illyria began to laugh softly for the first time in years. Daniel had told her stories of human mistakes, experiments that went wrong, scientists who mixed up samples, even simple tales of human clumsiness. To him, they were ordinary stories, but to her, they were treasures. She laughed until her eyes shimmered with tears. Daniel smiled, realizing how rare her laughter must be. It was a sound he wanted to protect. Still, Illyria carried a hidden fear. Her bond with Daniel was growing too quickly, too deeply. She had come to Earth for survival, not for her heart. Yet every time she looked at him, she felt something she had never felt among her own kind. A warmth that went beyond prophecy or science. Was it possible that destiny had tied more than just their biology together? Or was she allowing her heart to betray her mission? As dawn approached, Daniel stood and stretched. The sunlight painted gold across Illyria's face. For a moment, he forgot she was from another world. She looked so human, so fragile, yet so extraordinary. Illyria turned to him, her voice calm but heavy. "Daniel, If my people knew what we have discovered, they would come, they would take this from you by force. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we don't tell them, he said firmly. Not until we understand how to control this. Not until we're ready. His determination sent a strange warmth through her chest. He was not just helping her, he was protecting her. The bond between them had grown, built not on destiny alone, but on trust. Yet danger moved closer with every passing hour. The hunters prepared their strike, and when they came, the fragile connection between alien and human would face its first true test. For now, Illyria allowed herself one moment of peace. She sat beside Daniel, their shoulders almost touching, their silence comfortable. Two souls from different worlds, bound by a prophecy, and something far greater, the beginning of love. The days that followed were a blur of quiet experiments and whispered conversations. Daniel and Illyria worked side by side, the silence between them broken only by the hum of machines. Each test confirmed the same shocking truth. Human essence could repair the broken code of Illyrian life. It was no accident, no coincidence. It was something deeper, something almost designed. One night, Daniel stared at the glowing data on his screen, his brow furrowed in thought. "There's something I don't understand," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Illyria stepped closer, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the screen. "What do you see?" she asked softly. Daniel pointed to a section of the code. "This isn't natural damage. Illyria, this was done on purpose." Her breath caught, her heart freezing in her chest. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his face pale. "Your infertility, it's not a curse, not some random failure. It looks like a genetic lock, as if someone long ago altered your people's DNA to stop them from conceiving." The room grew heavy with silence, Illyria's body trembling as the truth sank in. Her people had always believed their sorrow was fate, but now she saw it for what it was, an act of war, a weapon buried deep within their very blood. Tears stung her eyes, her voice breaking as she spoke. Someone wanted us to die." Daniel nodded grimly. "Maybe enemies, maybe even your own ancestors, I don't know, but I do know this. Humans can unlock what was sealed. We're not just compatible with your people, we're the key." Illyria turned away, her heart heavy with rage and grief. She had carried the shame of infertility all her life, believing it was a curse of destiny. Now she learned it was never their fault. Her people had been victims of cruelty, their future stolen long before she was born. Her fists tightened, her voice shaking. "They let us suffer for centuries. They let hope die. And all this time the truth was buried in silence." Daniel stood, stepping closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You're not powerless anymore. Illyria, you have the truth now, and with it, the chance to fight back." She turned to him, her silver eyes burning with determination. "And with you," she said, her voice steadier, "I have hope." In that moment, something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. It was more than survival, more than science. It was a bond forged in shared struggle. But as their connection deepened, so too did the danger outside. The hunters who had followed Illyria to Earth had finally prepared their move. Hidden in the shadows, they had learned enough. They knew the girl had found human. They knew the cure was no longer just a myth. And soon they would strike. Inside the lab, Illyria pressed her hand against Daniel's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Your people don't realize what they carry," she whispered. "Within you is the power to save not just my kind, but perhaps many more." Daniel held her gaze, his voice firm. "Then we'll protect it together." The moment was fragile, filled with both fear and hope. Illyria's heart raced with emotions she had never known. Her people had spoken of love as a distant memory, a thing of the past. Yet here, standing beside a human, she felt it stir alive again. But destiny was not kind. As she leaned closer, as the bond between them grew stronger, the first shadow moved outside the window. The hunters were here, and the revelation of their past was only the beginning of the storm that was about to come. The night outside the research lab was silent, too silent. Illyria felt it first, the strange pressure in the air, the sense of eyes watching from the darkness. Her people were hunters by nature, and though she had never been trained for battle, her instincts warned her. "Daniel," she whispered, her hand tightening on his arm. "We are not alone." Daniel froze, glancing at the window. At first, he saw nothing, just shadows, trees swaying in the faint wind. But then, a figure moved, tall and sharp, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Another followed, and then another, until the outline of 3 Illyrian warriors emerged from the night. Their cloaks shimmered with alien armor, their weapons glowing faintly with lethal light. They had come not as diplomats, but as predators. Illyria's heart pounded, her throat dry. She knew them, not by name, but by purpose. They were hunters of the Council, elite enforcers who obeyed without question. If they had tracked her here, it meant only one thing. The Council had learned of her mission. They wanted the secret, and they would take it. Daniel stepped back from the window, his voice low. "What do they want?" Illyria's answer came with sorrow. "You, Daniel, they want you." He stared at her, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "Me?" "Yes," she whispered, "because within you lies the cure, and they will not let it belong to us alone. They will chain it, control it, maybe even destroy your people to keep the secret hidden." The door rattled as a heavy hand struck against it. A voice echoed, cold and commanding. "Illyria of the Illyrians, you are ordered to surrender the human, or face the judgment of your people." Illyria's body trembled, fear twisting through her chest. But when she looked at Daniel, she saw not fear, but defiance. He shook his head, his voice steady. "They can't take me, Illyria, and I won't let them take you either." The door burst open, metal bending beneath alien strength. The 3 warriors stepped inside, their eyes glowing, their weapons raised. One of them spoke, his voice sharp. "You betray your people, princess, by hiding the human." Illyria stood tall, though her hands shook. "I betray nothing," she answered firmly. "I seek life, not control, and this human has given us what you never could, hope." The leader of the hunters sneered. "Hope is weakness. Survival demands control. Surrender him now, or both of you die." The tension in the room grew heavy, the hum of alien weapons filling the air. Daniel clenched his fists, though he had no weapon, no power against them. But Illyria stepped in front of him, her cloak flowing like silver flame. "If you want him," she said with trembling courage, "you will have to kill me first." The hunters hesitated, their eyes narrowing. They had not expected such defiance from her. In their silence, Daniel found his voice. "You think you can control this?" he shouted. "You can't. This isn't just science. It's humanity, it's life itself, and it doesn't belong to your council or your weapons." The leader growled, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, Illyria extended her hand. Her body glowed faintly, her voice ringing with power. "You forgot one thing," she said. "Even in sorrow, even in weakness, the Illyrians still remember how to fight for what we love." Her energy pulsed through the room, a wave of silver light knocking the hunters back. The weapons flickered, stunned by her raw power. It was not enough to defeat them, but it was enough to buy a moment. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the back door. "Run," he shouted. Together, they rushed into the night, the hunters roaring behind them. The forest swallowed them in shadows, branches snapping under their feet. Illyria's heart pounded, fear and adrenaline mixing with something else. She had chosen, finally and fully. She had chosen Daniel, chosen the human over the council, chosen love over fear. But the chase was far from over. The hunters were relentless, their voices echoing through the trees. "Run all you wish, princess, but you cannot escape us forever." Daniel's grip on her hand tightened. He looked at her, his breath heavy, his voice filled with fire. "Then we fight together, Illyria, no matter what comes." And for the first time, Illyria believed it. Together, they could stand against even the darkness of her own people. The forest stretched endlessly, its shadows alive with danger. Illyria and Daniel ran until their legs burned, but the sound of pursuit never faded. The Illyrian hunters were tireless, their footsteps heavy, their voices sharp with rage. Still, Daniel refused to let go of Illyria's hand, and Illyria refused to surrender. They had chosen each other, and now they would face the storm together. At last, they reached the edge of the forest, where the land opened into a quiet valley. The moonlight painted the ground in silver, making the moment feel both beautiful and deadly. Illyria stopped, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "We cannot run forever," she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we stop here?" The hunters stepped from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixed on them. Weapons raised, voices like cold stone. "It ends tonight, princess," the leader growled. "You will give us the human, or you will both be destroyed." Illyria stood tall, though her body shook. "No," she said firmly, "you will not take him because he is not just a human. He is the key, the bond, the miracle our people have forgotten." The hunters sneered, their weapons humming louder. But before they could strike, something happened. Illyria's body glowed faintly. Her hand pressed against her chest as warmth spread through her veins. Her eyes widened in shock, and Daniel's voice cut through the silence. "Illyria, what's happening to you?" She gasped, falling to her knees. Her body trembled, not with fear, but with something new, something alive. I feel it," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The lock is gone. Daniel, the curse is broken. Life has returned to me." The hunters froze, disbelief flashing across their faces. It was impossible, unthinkable, yet the truth was before them. The prophecy had come true. The first spark of new life pulsed within Illyria, a miracle that no council weapon could deny. Daniel dropped beside her, holding her shoulders as her glow spread brighter. "Illyria, you mean?" She looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with joy. "I carry life within me. Your essence has healed what was broken. Our people can live again." The hunters lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with shock and fear. The leader stepped back, his voice shaking. This cannot be. The council forbade it. They swore it was impossible." Illyria rose slowly, her glow surrounding her like a shield. "Then the council was wrong," she declared, her voice strong and fierce. "Because life always finds a way, and it has chosen to live through us." The hunters hesitated, torn between duty and the undeniable miracle before them. They had no command to fight against something holy, something their legends had whispered but never seen. Slowly, they stepped back into the shadows, their silence speaking louder than any threat. The night swallowed them, leaving only Illyria and Daniel standing beneath the moonlight. Illyria turned to him, her heart pounding with emotions she could not name. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved my people." Daniel shook his head, his voice gentle. "No, Illyria, we saved each other." She pressed her forehead against his, her silver tears glowing as they fell. For the first time in centuries, an Illyrian felt hope not as a dream, but as reality. Her body carried the promise of a future, not just for her, but for all her kind. And it was humanity that had given it back to them. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but the story was only beginning. For now the universe would know that humans were unlike any other. They carried within them a power that could heal, a power that could unite. And with Illyria at his side, Daniel knew that this bond was more than science. It was destiny. Together they walked from the valley, their steps slow but steady. Behind them lay shadows and hunters. Before them lay uncertainty. But within Illyria's heart, a new life grew, and within Daniel's heart, a love stronger than fear. The Illyrians would rise again, not through conquest, not through weapons, but through the miracle of trust between two souls from different worlds. and as the stars shone above them, Illyrio whispered to the night, "Life has returned.